episode 133 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So our little chat this week, you actually discovered, and I guess it's sort of the concept of book bingo.
Yeah. I think it's it's kind of a common thing now to either have like a card like this one is, a book bingo card, or like a list of different kinds of books to try to read in a month or try to read in a year. Like even just the alphabet, reading a book that starts with each different letter of the alphabet. I think that was a big one last year.
Yep.
But they're just kind of fun ways to try to get out of reading ruts. And just like interesting ways to find new authors, I think, especially with the ones where it's like harder to find certain things, like with the alphabet one, like the X's and Z's and such. So yeah, but this one is fun because it's monster fucker bingo. So it just has all of the monsters on it, and it's about romance books. So I might try to find some, because like there's some of these that I haven't really read anything on. Like I was gonna say I haven't read a ghost one, but I actually did this summer. It's the only book I read. But they didn't have sex when he was a ghost. He just came back. He was actually in a coma.
Oh.
So he was a real person before they had sex. So I'm like, that doesn't really count because there's no actual...
Pen pal.
Yes, you said that. I went on Libby to try to get it. So I think I'm in line.
Good. That one has paranormal stuff in it. That's pretty good. When it's funny because you sent me that infographic, that's what I'm calling it, because like the bingo card. So it's just got like monster fucker, and then it's got all these different like monster parts.
Literally.
Right? It's like horns, merfolk, too many eyes, demons, slime, heat, tails, claws, fangs. And I'm literally going through all of these, like dragons, tentacles, wings, all this.
Mm-hmm. And
my first thought is shapeshifter. Even like 80% of these can be covered in Katie Robert series that I spoke about, the Demon Bargain series, because there's the Dragon's Bride, there's the Kraken something, so there's the tentacles for you. Mm-hmm. The Gargoyles something, that is the horns, the wings. Then there's the Succubuses something, there you get the shapeshifter and the claws, that like the dragon one, there's the tail, like it's just literally so many can be ticked off your list if you go with that, just with those 6 books.
It's funny because the reason that this popped up on my feed is because Katie Robert like posted a comment on it, like a recommendation for a book, because the person who posted it was like, I don't have, like, there were just a few she didn't have. And Katie Roberts commented on it and recommended a book that wasn't even her book, which I was like, whoa, she definitely could have recommended one of her books for it, which I just thought
but I
was
also,
cool.
I feel like recommending your own book is just a little like, ugh.
Yeah, a lot of people in the comments did.
I know, but I don't like that. It, like, if you recommend to me your own book, it sort of makes me like, a little bit like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, is that a little bit in poor taste?
Yeah. It was just funny, though, because there was, like, I think this person didn't have dragon, so she easily could have been like, I have a book called Dragon.
Yeah, The Dragon's Bride, yeah.
Yeah.
2 penises, people.
And a tail.
And a tail.
Yeah. But she commented on a vor one, and I was like, I've never even heard of there being like vor romance books.
I don't even know what a vor is, to be honest.
I think they like eat people.
So quite appropriate for a romance novel.
The erotic desire to be consumed by or to personally consume another person.
So you just eat people? That's your superpower?
Erotically.
Erotically eat people? I mean,
Yeah.
hey.
Hey. But not that. Yeah, I don't, I'm interested in that one. Because I'm like, what does that even, how would you even write that?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Are we not sure that Katie Robert created this bingo? Because now that I'm thinking about it, she's got even more that can be
definitely
covered there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. She might have. But somebody in the comments, or the person who posted it, was like, if anyone knows who made this one, please let me know. And she commented and didn't say, I made it. But it could have been someone based off of her books, because I'm like, so many of these.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, I guess, like, I actually really like the concept of, like, these bingos in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're really cute and fun. But I guess I feel like you need to have time to devote to them.
Yeah, and you can't really read the way that we normally do, which is like, we read on a whim of like whatever we're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big part of it too, as people who are very much beholden to their emotions, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it's just impossible to sometimes pick up a book that you want to read without knowing how it's going to end. It's problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah.
I love the ideas. Like,
yeah.
Exactly what you're saying. Like, I really want to, but am I going to?
Probably not.
Right? You know.
Anyway. Pick up a bingo card.
Yeah. And if anyone has any other cool ones or any, like, different kinds of suggestions, you can send them to us, because I am interested in if one will, like, pique my curiosity or actually make me do it. Because I am still in a reading rut.
Oh, yeah. I see, my thing right now is that I can't get into anything long and epic, because I'm like, I'm so close to finishing my master's, and I find that it's like obviously it's taking up a lot of my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find that, like, if I'm feeling an itch to read, I need something that I could get done in like a night.
Yeah.
So I'm actually tending towards like more short, I want to call them short stories, but like stuff that's like 150 pages.
Yeah.
Just
makes sense.
because I can get it done in a night, and it's not, because like I'm an obsessive reader. So like if I start a book, I find it really hard to stop, like put it down to do other things.
Yeah.
So I'll want to finish it. So I'm trying to stick to sort of shorter books that I can finish within one evening.
Yeah.
Just so that I don't get too distracted from schoolwork. Ugh. I'm so close.
So soon. And we'll have a big party.
Won't that be nice? I'm really gonna, honestly, it feels like, what am I gonna do with my time? You know what I mean? That's where I'm at right now. Like, when I don't have to read a bajillion articles, what am I going to do with myself?
Yeah.
Anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just a heads up. This is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy.
So, last week, shit ton of stuff happened. I feel.
And, yeah.
Right? So we're reading, it's week 2 of Ashes in the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. So this week we are reading chapters 21 to 37. So last week we met back up with our two main characters, Oraya and Raihn. and they are living in the capital city, the castle together. Raihn has taken over as king, and him and Oraya are married, but she hates his guts. So much so that she sort of helped stage a coup to try and get her vampire people back in power, and it didn't work. A ton of people died. Well, not a ton. A few people died, both Raihn's people and her people, but none of the Bloodborne people. And then Septimus, the Bloodborne prince, not Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Is it Bloodborne? Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
So he tells Oraya that he sort of staged something so that she would find one of Vincent's treasures, and it happened to work with her blood. So now he knows that she can use what Vincent can use, and he wants her help finding god items left over from gods, or that have power. And he thinks that Vincent had one and wants her to find it. So then Raihn said, let's find this item together and use it to get the Bloodborne out of our kingdom. So the plan is to go to Vincent's hometown that he grew up in, where his family home is, and visit his niece, Evelina, to see if she has any knowledge of where such an artifact might be. However, when they get there, they realize that Evelina be crazy. So that's where we're picking it up right now, is Evelina has taken Oraya away, sort of, to see some of Vincent's old things. Mm. So that's where we're picking it up. They're walking down the hall, and Evelina is, like, drunk, right? So she's acting drunkenly as she leads her down the hall. And she tells Oraya that, like, there isn't much left, but she kept it all in case he came back one day. And
it's, like, it's creepy.
I don't really understand how there's not much left. Like, I also don't understand, like, I guess we'll get into it in a minute, but if he just went around and killed everybody, how is there not much left in terms of stuff?
Yeah, I guess just his stuff? Did she get rid of everybody else's stuff that died? Like, she obviously has an obsession with him.
Yes.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, like, she leads her into a room that is remarkably, like, well preserved. Like, everything else in the castle is sort of, like, in disrepair, moldy, dusty, like, falling apart. But everything in this room is really well care of and, like, pretty pristine. And his belongings are placed just so around the room. And, like, the bed is made, and there's a notebook and, like, a desk with lamps and a pen. So, like, it's like she's got it set up so that if he ever comes, everything is just in the way he would like it, right? Mm-hmm. So Evelina reveals that a lot of stuff was, quote unquote, lost when everything happened. But she, like, which is AKA he killed everybody. But she dug through the rubble and cleaned everything up and remade his room to wait for him to come back. And I'm like, what rubble? He just went around and killed everybody. Like, how is there all this rubble? Like, how is the castle?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe he did something else. Like, did he take out part of the castle? Or was it like the vampire fights were so crazy? They ruined the castle. I don't really get it either.
Oraya asked if, like, there was anyone else here who knew him back then. Like, if they have any family left. And, like, Evelina laughs and says, like, of course no one's left. Like, he literally killed everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Oraya realizes then, which I think is pretty stupid, actually, that she doesn't realize it before, that Evelina was actually there that night and not born after his ascension the way she thought. And I'm like, you knew he killed everybody. I don't understand how is she born after he ascended? Like, who's left to give birth to her?
Yeah.
But
I don't
understand how Araya's being so, like, clueless.
Yes. Yeah. And, like, when you showed up and it's all children,
yeah,
like, that gives you an idea of where she was mentally when this trauma happened, because she's still there, and it's even like she talks like a 14-year-old or something.
Yeah.
Like, she's still in that stage because she's stunted by trauma.
Yes. So Evelina tells Oraya that she set it all up before he left for the Kandari, and that Lahore actually used to shelter kings, and that all the little kings were here, and he slaughtered them all. And then she tells Oraya that she actually hid in this room under the bed, and that first he went after the adults, his own father, his brothers and sisters. Then he actually came to the children's room and slaughtered all the children. And Oraya asked, like, why did he keep you alive? Thinking it was because she was a child and no threat to him.
Mm-hmm.
But Evelina sort of, again, laughs and is like, Vincent is very thorough. And then she just, like, pulls down her dress so that, like, her boobs are out. But it reveals this, like, star-shaped scar on her chest. And she said that she wasn't spared. Vincent actually pulled her out from under the bed and stabbed her in the heart. And she thought she would go into the next world with her brothers and sisters. And, like, they were all laying there on the floor together dying. But the quote-unquote mother chose to let her live. And then she reveals that she was only about 5 at the time. So, like,
how do you, like, there must have been other people in the castle, like, servants or something.
Yeah.
Because, like, how does a 5-year-old get through that?
Yes. And, like, how did she take care of herself at the age of 5? How did she hunt? How did she get blood? You know what I mean? There must have been somebody.
Yeah. There must have been, like, even if it was, like, human servants or something in the house.
Yeah.
And then she slowly killed them all because she was hungry.
Could be. Araya's, like, really shocked and disgusted to think of Vincent, like, slaughtering the children. But later, I guess, Vincent learned that Evelina survived, and she, like, sent him letters thinking that he wanted to hear from her, but he never responded to her. And, like, I guess the assumption is that, like, it was too risky for him to leave and go back and kill her, so he just left her alive.
Yeah, like, I don't really get why he did leave her alive, because we get a bit later that he did come back. I guess he was just like, she's so obsessed with him, maybe, that he knows she's not a threat to kill him to take the crown.
But also, too, like, I think part of the reason that they kill everybody in the family is to ensure that there's no heir, right? Because if there's no heir, then no one's going to come and kill him for the power. But when he eventually, we're going to find this out in a little bit, that he came back when Evelina was an adult, right? Because he's been ruler for, 200 years?
Yeah.
Thereabout?
Yeah.
Ish? So, he came back only 10 years ago. So by then, Oraya was in his care. So he knew that if anybody was going to be the heir, it was going to be his daughter, not his niece. So what's the point in killing her then?
Yeah, that's true. Do you think he knows, though, that Oraya is going to be his heir? Like, do you know for sure who's going to get it?
I think, I think that, I feel like it's sort of one of those things, like, you know how in AatSCK, where, like, you know, they get stronger and faster and whatever, and, like, you can tell who's going to inherit the power, like, in the courts.
Yeah.
I feel like it might sort of be like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like an assumption I'm making, that it feels kind of like that. Like maybe he sort of could sense that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I don't know. But that's just my feeling on it. And maybe it is just common if it's the closest relative. So, who knows?
Yeah, because, like, obviously Rain's case was
different.
Unprecedented. I don't know, like, what the connection between a turned vampire and their maker is.
Yes.
Because, like, it seems like it must be rare for a turned person to become heir.
Right.
But, like, the king had cousins, so it could have been one of them, but the magic or the goddess chose Rain.
Right.
So, it's just weird.
It is weird. So, I guess Evelina just says, like, I don't understand why he let his daughter live when so many other people had to die. And, like, it's a valid point. Like, we know that he has no issues killing kids. Because he killed a whole bunch. So, like, we can't say that he faltered at killing Oraya as a child because she was a child. Like, we already have learned. He don't care about that. So, like, what made him spare her all those years ago? Evelina sort of, like, gets closer and closer, which sort of makes Oraya uncomfortable because, like, she's still naked from the... her boobs are still out.
Yeah.
And, like, she's, again, like, acting a little drunk, and she's getting really close. And, like, we learned in the last book that, you know, getting close to vampires is something that she's been trained not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, and, like, Oraya just says, like, step back, like, get back. But, like, Evelina just doesn't listen. And, like, she is really close at stabbing her. She's got her knife in her hand, and she's about to stab her. Right where Vincent did. But Rain shows up and then sort of interrupts them and asks Evelina to excuse him and his wife since dawn is approaching. So he's making an excuse for them to go to bed.
Yeah.
And, like, Evelina ignores him and sort of just asks, like, how it felt to kill Vincent. And all he says is he took no pleasure in that death. And then Evelina laughs and, like, leaves and walks down the hall back to the ball. And Rain and Oraya go find their room to sleep in. And so then everyone goes to bed eventually. And, like, they say dawn is approaching, but it feels like dawn is a really long way off.
I know. I was like, wait, they can't go out. Dawn is approaching, we just said.
But, like, so he says, oh, dawn is approaching, we're going to go to bed. And then I guess the party winds down and everybody goes to bed. Like, Evelina and all of her children.
Yeah.
And then that's when, like, Rain and Oraya and, like, Septimus, all them, that's when they, like, get into action. So they start searching the castle for anything that could be of use, and they bring it back to Oraya to, like, get a feel for it and see if that's, like, the god object. And, like, she is getting frustrated because she knows that Vincent doesn't care about this place, but, like, Septimus is insistent that if he kept links to Lahore in his office or at his castle in the capital, then there must be a reason. Like, if he truly doesn't care and doesn't have ties to his hometown, why are there mentions of it at his castle in the capital? Which is a valid point. Anyway, they actually wonder if Evelina is, like, intentionally keeping something from them. But they, like, raid the entire, like, all the unoccupied rooms that they're able to get access to. They look through them and find nothing. So they all go to bed. So, like, that must have taken a couple of hours. At least.
Right. I know. I'm so confused by the timeline here. Don't say it's... Maybe they were lying when they said it was almost dawn, but, like, you shouldn't... You know, you can't just lie about the time.
No. So in the room, it's actually Oraya, Raihn, and Misha. So Oraya and Misha share a bed, and Raihn takes the couch. But Oraya can't sleep, so she's about to sneak out, and Raihn catches her. Turns out he couldn't sleep either, so they head out to get into trouble within the city itself. So again, like, obviously it's not that late for Raihn to be able to leave, like, to be able to go out. They must have some time.
Yeah.
So as they're going out into the city, they realize that, like, city is not deserted. Like, people do live there. However, it's all, like, everyone is, they're all, like, really desperate and, like, starving people. So, like, it's threadbare, I'll say.
Yeah.
So they wander around and, like, they said that, like, there's no separation between vampires and humans. Like, they're all just living together, which is, like, scary for the humans, I guess. But, like, everyone is so desperate that it just doesn't matter anymore. So they wander around until they find this lake. And there's a human woman there getting water. And they see a vampire that's going to attack her. So Oraya goes and fights him because that's what they did in the first book. If a vampire was going to attack a human, they would intervene. So she actually stabs the vampire and gets a flashback to stabbing Raihn. And she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But then she sort of, like, she has to talk herself sort of into it. That, like, this isn't the same, and this person actually deserves it. And she just stabs him over and over and over and over again until his chest is a bloody pulp. So, like, she's obviously getting her emotions out through this kill, we'll say. So Raihn then, like, sort of comes over, and he's like, hey, like, look at that ruin. Why don't we go? There's, like, a ruin near the lake, and he looks like it'll have a nice view. So he's like, why don't we go look at the view? Because, like, this is when she's starting to come down from that adrenaline and start to get sort of, like, that morose feeling. So he flies her up and, like, flies her across the lake. Like, they fly around a little bit first before he settles them on the ruin. And she has to work really hard to ignore the feelings she has when flying with him. So, like, they're close, you know. She still finds him attractive, we'll say. Because, like, when their bodies are close, like, she finds that really hard. So, they land on the ruin, and, like, the view is outstanding. And they perch on it and, like, just watch the view. And he says he should have known that she was half vampire from the beginning because she has never looked more happy than when flying. And that shows that she was made for it.
I didn't really expect what happens to happen.
Oh, no?
I know, like, I should have, but I really didn't think it was going to happen. Oh. I know there's foreshadowing everywhere, but I was just like, oh, it's just so sad.
Yeah. But, like, she sort of, so that's what it is. She's like, what are you talking about? I obviously wasn't made for it because I have no wings.
Yeah.
And he's like, remember, like, Nightborn wings are conjured, and you probably can conjure them. And she's like, no, I disagree. But then she actually does think that when he took her flying, she did feel like a missing part of herself was found. Like she does belong in the sky. So he asks her if she remembers the time that she threw him out a window. She's like, yeah. But isn't that she did that accidentally with her power?
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like, yeah. And then he just pushes her off the edge of the ruin. So, like, it's actually pretty hilarious. It's like pushing somebody in the pool and hoping that they'll swim.
Yeah.
It's pushing her into the sky and hoping she conjures wings.
I was like, this seems excessive.
It does seem a little excessive. So, like, she's falling, and I'm like, geez, this is a high ruin. Because she keeps falling. And then it's until she feels the pulse of the night sky and finds its rhythm, and then she isn't falling, she's flying. So, like, woo. And she starts thinking too much about her wings and what she's actually doing, and she passes out. And then, I guess, falls. Like,
yeah.
I hate that part. I hate when writers do that. Like, it just seems like they make the female character so fragile. Like, the shock of having wings makes her pass out.
Yeah. Like, I don't necessarily think she should be able to fully fly right now.
No.
Because she doesn't know these muscles.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it is a bit excessive.
And, like, I just find so many writers, and female writers do that. They're like, oh, my female character just got a shock. I'll make her pass out. And I'm like,
yeah.
We can birth babies and not pass out. Which is so hard. Like, it just bothers me that everyone's like, oh, I need to make her, like, have a weakness or something. Like, I need to make him be able to, like, scoop in and save her. And I'm like, why?
Yeah. But even if she was, like, struggling to fly, it would give him, like, a reason to touch her. Help her from falling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's unnecessary.
Anyway, I really don't like that whole trope. And I'm calling it a trope. I don't even know if it is, but I'm calling it one.
Well, it was in the last book, too.
Yes!
Yeah.
Ugh! Sorry.
It's a trope.
So, while she's passed out, she has a memory of Vincent holding her in his arms when she was 11. And he was terrified because she was trying to climb up a wall to a balcony and fell. And she thought of how, like, her whole childhood, he was equal parts distant and comfortable. Like, he didn't touch her very often. He never hugged her. But, like, he was still comfortable for her. Like, he still cared about her. Like, she could see the concern in his eyes. And he just reiterated how fragile she was and how she shouldn't give the world a reason to take her away. In other words, don't take unnecessary risks. And he told her that she was too precious to be taken away by something so mundane as, like, falling. And then he tells her to get ready for bed, that she's on chapter 52 of the histories, and they'll read 2 more before bed tonight. But that's when she sort of realizes that, okay, they're in a library, but the library they're in isn't actually on the floor that they're on. And she read the histories at 14, not 11. And that's when she sort of clued in that, oh yeah, this isn't a dream. Or this is a dream. It's not real. Yeah. Vincent is dead. And, like, she felt so many emotions going through her at that point. Like, she felt grief and love and hatred and anger. And, like, he tells her, so, like, she's talking to him now when she's aware that it's a dream. And he tells her it's okay and ask what she needs to know. And she opens her mouth to ask him something, but then she wakes up. So we don't actually know if, like, she would have gotten any sort of answer, like...
Yeah, and I get that she had to pass out to get
that vision.
Like, this memory. Yeah. It would have taken longer to, like, for her to have this moment without the memory shoved in there.
Yeah.
I guess.
So, Raihn is, like, peering over her, and he's worried about her, but she just gets up, and then she looks at her wings. And, like, I find it hilarious, because all I can think of is, try looking at your back, and, like, you're, like, looking, and, like, maybe you start to turn around, and, like, you're spinning in a circle trying to, like, look behind you. That image to me was really funny. So, her wings are featherless black wings. They look just like Vincent's. But she finally sees her red air marks running all around the border of her wings and then running, like, dripping down the middle, sort of like blood almost. So, like, it just proves that she is indeed the heir. And, like, probably one of the reasons why Vincent didn't want her to know that the wings were there.
But if he's still alive, because when Rain was a slave, he still had wings, but he didn't have the marks until the king died, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
So, I don't really know why he was, like, I wonder if there's more to it. Like, I feel like there has to be more to the reason that Vincent didn't want. I guess he wanted her to think that she was human.
Yeah.
So if she jumped out and got wings, she'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I guess that's it.
Yeah. And so, I guess she's so happy and excited to have the wings. But then she just starts to cry because Rain saw the potential in her and had faith that she could fly. And, like, the fact that he is technically her captor, like, he's keeping her, but he's the one who gave her this freedom. And I'm like, yeah, by pushing you off a ledge.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter anymore.
I guess. And that reminds her of the ball that when she and Vincent danced, and it was like right before she entered the Kajari. And she asked him why he never took her flying. And he said he didn't want her to get any ideas, that she could do it herself. So, I guess then she was like, oh, he was looking out for me. But she was like, he knew that she was half vampire and knew that she could probably summon wings. So, like, that sort of conversation in her mind cemented the fact that he didn't want her to find out.
Yeah.
And, like, he kept that, like, her ability to fly, which we've learned just in this brief scene is something that is so special and important to her, right? Like, it was like her missing piece. And just knowing that he kept such a special and important part of her from her, you know,
yeah,
is heartbreaking for her. So she just sort of asks, like, why? Like, why would he do this to me? And Rain sort of starts speaking to her sort of in a pity way, and she doesn't want him to do that. So she's like, just be honest with me. Like, why do you think he would do this? And his response was that he thinks Vincent was afraid of her because she was the most dangerous person in the world to him, and it made him terrified of her. And she didn't understand why someone so cautious and thorough, who killed children he helped to raise, wouldn't just kill her the day he found her. Like, why would he bring her to his home and lie to her for years? And then she says, why would he break her? Which is a wild thing to say, like, and, like, I guess, though, he kind of did. You know what I mean? Like, he trained her to be petrified of his entire species, trained her into thinking that she was weak and fragile, and obviously, like, she's stronger than she thought, so, I don't know. And she just thinks that, like, Vincent had made her everything she is. And, like, even the greatest part of her power is technically his. Like, her night flame. Like, that's his power. And she hurts because of him. Like, she's realizing that he has sort of betrayed her by not being honest with her. So she's sort of mad at him. But at the same time, she never wants to heal from grief because she misses him so much that she can't hate him. So it's like she wants to hate him, but she can't because she misses him so much.
Yeah.
It's really sad. And he says that Rain sort of just tells her that, like, he spent 70 years captured by a vampire who was way more than pure evil. But, like, this guy did love his wife. And that love terrified him because love is scary no matter who you are. Which, I mean, is very insightful. Thank you, Rain. Yeah. And then she sort of remembers, like, oh, yeah, who Rain is. He killed my father. He's taken over my castle. And she thinks for a quick second that she had loved him, and look what happened.
Yeah.
But then she's like, no, wait. That's not true. I didn't love him. So, like, she's hard up in denial here.
Yeah.
And, like...
Which, like... You, I don't know about calling it love after having sex once and being in traumatic situations either. But for this romance book, I get that we're saying they were in love in the first book.
But, like, I also sort of... I don't know what to say about it. Like, I get that she's keeping herself at a distance from him because of his actions. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't. Yeah. However, I feel like he has been putting himself out there toward her since they've been married, right? Like, he keeps saying, I want you to rule with me side by side. Like, you know, offering and saying, like, if you help me get rid of the Bloodborne, I'll set you free. You can do whatever you want, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like he has made his intentions clear. And, like, yes, of course, he sort of lied to her and also killed her father. But, like, I don't know. I feel like he's also been open about that, him sort of insinuating that he does care about her, because I feel like she thinks that everything he does is an act.
Yeah, there's a lot of... Which, like, it's so hard for her to reconcile the two sides of him, too, because, like, she thinks everything he did in the first book was an act just to, like, I don't know. I don't really... There are things that don't make sense. Like, he could have just killed her at the Kajari and won outright.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know how she reconciles that in her head either. Like, obviously, it's confusing. But he did ultimately take the power and kill her father. And she was like, whoa, you didn't tell me this was going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, I guess after thinking about what he actually has done, it makes her want to be alone again. Like, she doesn't want his company. So she just says, like, go away, please.
And I'm like, you can't just be out here alone with your new baby wings.
New baby wings.
Also, when is sunrise? Because
I
thought it was almost sunrise.
It's been forever. Like, think of all they've done. They've literally searched an entire castle. Then they've explored a city, saved a human woman from a vampire attack, flew to the top of some ruins. She learned how to fly, passed out. All of that, and it's soon sunrise. Anyway, so he does leave, and she spends, like, a long time on the ruins just, like, looking out at the view. And she remembers, like, seeing in Vincent's room, when Evelina showed it to her, there was, like, an ink drawing, and it had, like, a very specific perspective, so, like, of the view. But it was from a certain angle. So, like, she's like, I wonder what that's about. So she, like, goes around trying to find that angle. And she manages to find it. And when she does find it, it leads her to this tower. So she manages to glide, hop, fly. Like, she's not great at flying. But she does manage to make it to the tower. And then she finds Hayash-shaped wings made out of some sort of fungus. And there's, like, a heart-like shape at the center of the wings. And, like, she approaches it, and the heart starts beating in time with her heart. And she knows that, like, this is what Septimus was after. Like, this is what he wanted her to find. So, like, Septimus was right. It is out here.
And we're like, is this the god blood? What is this?
Yeah.
What is god blood, and how do you know? And why would he just hide it here? Anyway.
So, she puts out her hand to touch the heart. And the vines, there are vines, because, like, it's a wall. There are vines around her, and it makes her bleed. They, like, wrap around her hand and make her bleed. But that opens the heart-shaped cavern, and then she pulls out a pendant. And then she actually gets a flashback. Like, it sends her into a vision of Vincent's point of view the night he killed his family.
Great. Exactly what she needs. More trauma.
Yeah. But he's being an ass because he's talking about how no one will remember the names of the children he killed. And that it's actually a night-born tradition to kill the children. And that his father actually killed his little brother minutes after he was born. And I'm like, why? Like, why would you bother having a second? Like, why have more children if you're just going to kill the baby when it's born?
Yeah.
Is it on the off chance it's a girl? You'd keep it? Like, I don't...
Can girls not be heirs? Because he killed all the girls, too.
Well,
like, I don't...
Obviously they can, because Oraya is one.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why, like, if you don't want to have the baby, then don't make the baby. They're fucking vampires. I'm sure they can figure out, like, some semblance of a condom.
Contraception. Yeah.
Pull out, at least. God. Anyway, Vincent apparently, like, tamped down every sort of form of power to fly under the radar and he, like, endured his father's abuse. So, like, he was his father's heir, and he knew it, and he felt the power, but, like, he refused to acknowledge it so that his father wouldn't get any ideas. And then he thought of his father's face when he killed... He had to think of sort of his father's face when he killed the children.
Mm-hmm.
And at this moment, he's actually nailing his father's wings to the walls and muttering spells. So, like, the wing-shaped fungus, I'm assuming anyway, is actually his father's wings that he is, like, nailed to this wall.
Mm.
And he's thinking that, like, he doesn't have any regrets. So, he doesn't regret killing any children. So,
good.
Yeah. So, Oraya, like, wakes up from that memory, and then she hears Evelina speak, telling her that she's been trying to access the pendant for years, but couldn't. And Oraya tries to stand, and she's, like, super dizzy. And she does pocket the pendant and pull out her sword. But Evelina brought one of her children with her. And Evelina tells Oraya that she only realized the pendant was here 10 years ago. So Vincent came and like, put the pendant here, but didn't tell her. And I guess both Evelina and the child, or the children that are there, smell Oraya's blood dripping from her hand, from the vines. And all of a sudden, the child just attacks her and bites her arm. And then Evelina attacks her, and they fight. And just when Oraya is, like, about to get the upper hand, the child, it's a little boy, stabs Oraya's wing, which distracts her. So then Oraya is on the ground, and Evelina is on top of her, and then she slams her head on the ground and knocks her out. So, that's fun for her.
Yep.
So then we go over to Raihn's point of view, and he sat, like, it says that he sat watching Oraya on top of the tower for ages, but then the sun started coming up, so he had to leave. So, like, Oraya is obviously she is able to be out in the sunlight. So we're assuming that all of this with Evelina is actually happening in somewhat of daylight.
Yeah, I think they even mentioned that, like,
they're sunburned.
You could see the marks on her skin, yeah. So even more batshit.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
So, like, he was up waiting for her. He didn't go to bed. And he kept opening the curtain and burning a little just to sort of catch a glimpse and see if she's there. And Misha wakes up and asks, like, what are you doing? And he just tells her that, like, Oraya isn't back yet. And she suggests, like, maybe she ran away. And Raihn knew that, like, no, she's not going to abandon her people. She's not going to abandon him. But he gets, like, a bad feeling. So
he would know if there was anything wrong with
yeah.
her.
So he gets Misha up and they leave the room. So Oraya, like, back to her point of view, she comes to, but she's in like a dark space. And Evelina is actually holding the Taker of Hearts, which was Vincent's sword that only he could hold. And Oraya's hands are bound together in front of her. But Evelina also nailed her wings to the wall.
Great.
So, yeah. So she's, like, being tortured, I guess, kind of. So she tries to send the wings away, but, like, she doesn't know how to get rid of them. And, like, I don't know if you could summon, like, could you, like, get rid of them if they were nailed to...
Pinned?
Yeah.
Yeah. I doubt. I don't know anything about wings, I guess. Ugh. But I wouldn't think so.
Come on, Catherine. God. So, like, Evelina's really pissed because she sort of assumed that she was going to be Vincent's heir. And she was like, I had to learn to be queen all alone. And that's why she made the children, so that she would have people to rule. Which is sketch.
Yeah.
And Oraya notices that she has to hold the sword with fabric because obviously it burns her. And she's wearing the pendant and that's burning her too. And Evelina is really pissed that Vincent saved Oraya. Like, she's just a human. So, Evelina bites her and Oraya feels really helpless and can't fight. And then Evelina tells her that she thought Vincent always meant to keep her alive. But when she touched the pendant, she sort of got the same vision that Oraya got and realized that, like, he didn't purposely keep her alive. He was just sloppy that night and made a mistake. And that she wasn't worth the trouble of going back and fixing it. So, like, she's learning now that her entire existence, what she thought, is a lie. So she's sort of going through her own midlife crisis. And Oraya sort of understands that. And, like, understands her whole world has been a lie because she was obsessed with this man and loved him because that's how she could survive. But now she sort of knows that, like, she meant nothing to Vincent.
Yeah.
And sort of thinks that, like, they're the same. Like, they both were betrayed by the man that they loved. Like, a man that they loved. Not in a romantic way, but in a family way.
Yeah.
And she realizes that, no, she is powerful. She's the High Edge heir, and she is not going to let Evelina kill her. So she decides she can't use, like, she knows she can't, like, she can't fight her the way she is. Like, she's bound, she's pinned, there's nothing she could do. So she decides she's gonna make something up. And Evelina is actually so desperate that she believes it's true. So she tells her that, like, she tells Evelina, like, you deserve the Taker of Truths. You work, like, you know, you deserve it from Vincent. Like, he owes you that much.
Yeah.
And the reason why it hurts for you to hold it is because Oraya needs to transfer ownership of it to her. So she's like, I just need to touch it to be able to transfer the ownership. So, of course, Evelina's slightly dotty and crazy, so she does believe it. And she orders a little girl to come over and free her hands. So she takes them and just hovers them over the sword. And, like, she's trying to find her Nightfire. And, like, she can't really summon it. Because normally she can summon Nightfire whenever she wants. However, she can't summon it. I guess she's too weak. Like, whatever has happened to her, she can't summon her power. However, there's Nightfire in some lamps around there. And she can feel sort of their presence. And that she can control that. So she just, like, bullshits Evelina into grabbing the sword, and obviously Evelina starts screaming, and Oraya digs, like, deep inside of herself, past her memories and her grief and her betrayal, and looks inside herself, and, like, finds the source of her power, like, the well of her power. So, like, she stands up, and she rips her wings from the wall, And then she goes over and she actually takes the blade from Evelina. And it's super painful. Like, she can't hold on to it either. Because a part of me, like... So a part of me, like, always thought that, like... Because everyone has been so insistent that, like, oh, nobody can touch the Taker of Hearts but Vincent, right? And a part of me wanted to be, like, wanted Oraya to touch it and be like, oh, it doesn't hurt at all. I really wanted that to happen. But it doesn't. She holds it, and it hurts really, really bad for her to hold.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, I don't really understand this magic-y stuff.
No. So, she does manage to glimpse Vincent's memories as she's holding it. And, like, the night fire is starting to, like, burn through the room. And Oraya gets up and goes over to Evelina and, like, stabs her and kills her. But then she's attacked by the little girl. And the little girl is actually about to stab Oraya. When this, like, blast rocks through the room. And then Raihn is there. And Oraya thinks that, like, she's hallucinating or dreaming because Raihn is, like, looking at her the way he looked at her during the Kajari. And she hates when she dreams of those things because it reminds her when Raihn wore his heart on the outside of his body. Which makes it hard for her to reconcile all he had done to her. So, like, when he looks at her like that, she forgets what he did to her family.
Yeah.
So, then she wakes up later, and they're in a small home near Sivernage, which is the capital. So, Raihn actually flew her here to heal, while the Bloodborne and Keturah stayed in Lahore to get things under control. So, obviously, Evelina is dead, so now they gotta make everything right there. And Raihn actually managed to get the pendant, and Septimus doesn't know they have it. So they got to figure out the pendant now. So Oraya just, like, remembers her wings and starts to get really upset because she thinks that they're ruined. But, like, he looks at them and reassures her that she was made for the sky and he's not going to let anyone take it from her. And then she's like, I can't believe you came looking for me. And he's like, of course I did. Which is cute.
It is, yeah.
So, like, he needs to put salve on it to distract... So, to, like, distract herself, she asks if it was worth it. And I guess she means, like, killing Vincent and taking power. And he says he doesn't know. And then he says that, like, the night Neculai lost his throne, a.k.a. the night Vincent came and took it and killed Neculai, Raihn wanted to burn it all down. And he feels like the entire thing is cursed. Like, if you want to keep the throne, you need to become what the previous leaders were. But, like, he doesn't want that. And he'll die before he lets that happen. And he also says if he can't kill himself, he hopes Oraya will kill him instead. So he's like, if I ever become a dictator like Neculai and Vincent, then kill me.
Fair. I hope she does.
Yeah. He also says it was worth it to die rather than kill her during the Kajari. And that he has to draw the line somewhere, and she's the line. So, again, like, he says these things to her, and I don't understand how she doesn't, like, I don't understand how she has doubts about his feelings for her. Like, how does she, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you can't just go from a terrible relationship with your father, who had his dualities of loving her but also hiding shit and lying to her, and then get into a relationship with a man who she has feelings for but is hiding shit and didn't tell her the truth and then killed her father.
Yeah, and I'm not...
She deserves better than both of them.
And
But I want Raihn to be the better.
But, like, I know that she shouldn't forgive him right away for lying and doing the shit that he's done. Like, I get it. However, she keeps doubting his intentions. Like, a big thing is, like, she doesn't know what's real with him. And I'm like, how can you not know? Like, you know what I mean? When he says this sort of thing, like, I don't understand how you can doubt he has feelings.
Yeah, like, I don't think, I don't know, I feel like she can tell that he does most of the time, but then other times she's like, he's hiding shit, so, I know. Yeah.
So, he examines her wings a little bit more, and, like, her muscles are aching because obviously having 2 new appendages that you've used,
yes.
like, she literally went from no wings to wings and then flew around a bunch yesterday, or a few days ago. So, like, her muscles are, like, aching. So he massages her to get them to relax because she's been holding them really tense because she thought she had to, not realizing that if she relaxed, they're going to stay in a certain position. So, of course, the massaging gets her all hot and bothered, and, like, he can tell that she's hot and bothered, and I'm like, is there a smell? Like, are they these kinds of vampires? Can they smell arousal? Like, is that what we're dealing with?
Yeah.
And, like, she knows that he would stop if she asked him to, but she doesn't. So, like, they keep going on, like, touches, and, like, he, I guess, like, brushes his hand across a wing, and, like, he's, like, you know, sensual massage, but it doesn't, like, he doesn't go further than, like, massaging her muscles. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, reaching around for any, like, any parts.
No, it's he's doing it because she's so sore. Like, he's not doing it in any sexual way.
No.
He's just trying to help her feel better.
Yeah.
But she also must be, touch-starved as a human ever. Because, like, Vincent rarely touched her. Like,
yeah.
God. What a terrible life she had. I just feel so bad for her.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, they keep going for a while. He keeps, like, touching her. And there's nothing X-rated, but, like, she keeps moaning because, again, she's been touch-starved. So, like, any touch feels good. And he just tells her that he's so tired pretending that he doesn't think about her every night. And I'm like, why do you have to pretend? Like, you know what I mean? I don't understand why he feels that he has to pretend he doesn't love her.
Yeah, I don't really know. Maybe he's afraid he's going to come on too strong. And I'm like, we're a bit late.
Well, for that. Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe he's tired of, like, maybe he wants to give her space.
Smart of him.
But, like, and she is too. Like, thinks that she also is tired of pretending she doesn't want him. But also, every time she closes her eyes, she still sees Raihn killing her father. So, like, while she wants him, she still can't forget what he's done. So that sort of cools her off and she pulls away. And then he tells her that, like, he was selfish when they had sex, that he thought he would die. Like, he just thought he was gonna die because he knew he wasn't gonna kill her tomorrow.
Yeah. Wasn't this the book where he was like, I have a list of things I want to do with you?
Yeah.
Was that this
That
book?
was last book.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I meant was it the series? Because we read a lot of books where there's a lot of people that love one person before the other one realizes, which I like that trope.
So, he thought he would die and that she would never know who he was or what he would do. But she gets mad at that because she tells him, like, she dreams of the moment she kills him every night. And she had to do what he couldn't. Because, like, he's like, oh, you know, I wouldn't kill you. And she's like, well, you made me kill you. You know what I mean? So, like, the thing that he refused to do, he made her do.
Yeah. It's, like, so obvious, but when I read that part, I was like, oh, shit, the therapy that this woman needs.
Yeah. But, like,
obviously, we saw it happen. Yeah.
Keep going.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, obviously we saw her kill him and knew that, like, she immediately regretted it. She, like, made it not happen with her wish. But, like, the actual act, obviously she has PTSD from it. Like, she's dreaming about it. Like, this is awful. Like, not only looking at him does she see him kill Vincent, she sees her kill him. It's, like, so traumatizing.
Yeah. So
I guess I didn't really realize it till she actually
yeah,
said
me
it.
neither.
And I feel like it's the same thing with Raihn, too.
Yeah, it's true, though. Like, and I didn't realize it either, like, how traumatic of an experience that would be, and how selfish it was of Raihn to put her through that.
Yeah.
So there's some innuendo that I don't understand in the next bit, and I'm just gonna read it and see if you, like, maybe you just didn't pick up. I don't know if you picked up on it. So she says, "You made me kill you." I ground out. "You made me do what you couldn't do. For the second time in my life, I bit down on those words so hard my teeth drew blood from my tongue. I turned away, but it was too late to avoid seeing the realization fall over Rain's face as he touched his chest, right where my blade had pierced it. Shame flooded me. I'd almost... Mother, what the hell kind of daughter did that make me? What kind of queen? Oraya, Raihn started, and I cringed, bracing for his words. But then a knock rang at the door. I have no clue what, for the second time in my life, Like, what the hell is she talking about?
Yeah. All I can think about is that first vampire guy that she had sex with, and then her father made her kill him.
Thank you.
Is that...
Yeah,
Is that what we're thinking it is? Because, like, I guess killed somebody she thought that she loved, or...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how her feelings were with him, but, like, she had sex with him, and he bit her against her will. So, like, I don't know. That it's just such a... Fuck. Every relationship in her life is so hard.
But then she says, I'd almost... Mother, what the hell kind of daughter did that make me? What kind of queen?
Yeah.
So, like, is she saying, like...
I thought that it was just going to be, like, I'd almost told him... Or I'd almost been vulnerable, or like I'd almost been weak or something. I don't know.
Anyway.
But yeah, it's, I don't know for sure if that's what it is, but that's all that came to mind.
That sounds correct. Anyway, so as it said, there was a knock at the door, and it's Misha. So she was at the house with them, and there's a message from Vale from Sivnaj. And it turns out there's unrest amongst the Rishan nobles, and they're undermining Vale by not sending troops. So he needs help. And Misha asks, like, I guess Raihn sort of walks out to talk to her about this message. And Misha asks, like, what did she walk in on? And Raihn just, like, doesn't want to talk about it. And he sort of says that, like, he thought he was making a noble sacrifice by dying so that Oraya could live. But really, he just gave her nightmares. And, like, he's just now realizing it. So he plans to leave for Sivnaj tomorrow. And Misha asks, like, what's the plan? What are they going to do? And tells him that, like, he needs to stop resenting his power. Because right now, that's what he's doing. He just resents that he has it, resents that he's in charge. Like, he doesn't like it. He's not having fun. Mm-hmm. But she also says that, like, he can't leave Oraya alone. Like, he needs to let her in and, like, trust her. And she just says, like, she isn't Nezanin, whatever her name is.
Nezanin. I don't know. Nezamine.
And, like, he isn't Nekulai. And he just says, like, he's been fascinated by her from the first moment. And he just wants to stand beside her and protect her, but, like, he knows he hurt her so badly. Maybe he shouldn't be the one protecting her and defending her. And I'm like, it's nice that you think that. Like,
yeah,
it's nice that he's finally realizing that, like, what he wants, but also maybe what he shouldn't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does seem like he's growing a bit from last week.
So, like, he decides that he's going to go back to the city alone, and he's going to send Keturah to escort Misha and Oraya back once Araya's wings are healed. So he leaves the next night, and he does say goodbye to both of them. And obviously him and Araya, like, don't say very much. But they say a lot with looks. And as he left, he turned to look back at the cottage, and she's actually watching him from the window. And they wave at each other as he flies away. And sort of insinuates that, like, she's gonna miss him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, of course she is. So, yeah, we go to an interlude now, and it's about Rain's time as a slave. And he thinks, like, as a vampire, time is completely meaningless, and we get, like, we kind of already know, but vampires see humans as trash, and turned vampires are, like, one tiny step above that, but they're still, like, trash. So he's basically in this house as a pet, and only one person ever treated him like anything more. So at first, he thinks that she's just like the rest of them, but then he sees that she's a victim too. And the first time they're alone together, he's like patching himself up from like a beating, and she helps him, and it's like the first gentle hand he's felt since he was turned. After that, months pass before they speak to each other, but they eventually end up doing way more. And we don't really get how it all happened, but we just get that, like, eventually they kiss, and then they make love, and they're too far gone.
And we're,
He's fast.
Yeah, well, but, like, I feel like this takes place over, like, if it took them months to even speak, I feel like this has taken place over years.
Well, yeah, and he was there, I think, like, 70-ish years. So, like, there's a lot of time.
So he says that, like, she's the only one who's, like, shown him any kindness. But, like, Vale was there. Are we saying Vale was an asshole, too? Because now he's on his side.
Yeah, we kind of get a bit of
that
a little later.
Sorry.
No, all good. So we go to Araya's point of view now, and, like, this place feels empty without Rain, but, like, her and Misha have gotten into a routine of healing, training, and resting. In their downtime, they, like, study the pendant, and Misha knows, like, some sorcery, so, like, she's trying to use that to figure it out. But the only thing that we really get is Misha kind of wonders if it's something to, like, enhance power somehow.
Right.
So, I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea where this is going. So, I don't know if that's right or wrong or anything. Misha uses, like, the healing stuff that Rain got on Araya's wings every day. And she makes a comment that it must be worth everything Rain went through to get it. Because, like, her wings are healing. So, we're like, he went through a lot to get this. So she also says, Misha also tells Araya that, like, Rain was so worried about her. And Araya thinks of him saying, I thought I lost you. But she says that, like, he just had to protect his assets. And it's just like...
But, like, this is what I mean. She thinks of herself as an asset when he's like, you're the line. And, like, I'm tired of pretending I don't want you every night. Like, how do you think that makes you an asset? Obviously, he thinks of you as more.
Oh, yeah. And I think she's just trying to, like, keep the distance. Like, I don't think she actually thinks that's true because she can't. But what book or movie or something does he call her an asset or something? Oh, Six of Crows. Kaz just calls, oh my god, what's her name? Inej.
Oh, yeah.
An asset or something. And she's like, oh, okay. Anyway, it was just stuck in my head. Okay. Misha just sighs at her saying that because, like, we all know it's not true. And Misha says that, like, Rain has a lot of flaws, but he does know how to love. And I'm like, whoop.
Yikes.
Yeah. So Araya's trying to, like, train in her magic, and Misha's helping her. But Misha says, like, Araya is blocking it, and Araya thinks it's, like, so much more volatile than it used to be, obviously, because, like, when she became heir, she got a shit ton more power. And the pressure keeps, like, building in her until she hears Vincent's voice. And she says, she thinks to herself, like, lately it's an annoyance hearing him. And like his voice in her head, which like we're all assuming that she's just making this up because of trauma and grief. I guess. But his voice says, like, asks where she wants him to go, and says like she wanted him to be a part of her, and it makes her feel ashamed. And his voice says, I made you everything you are, and you're ashamed of me. And she thinks like that, those words, that quote is actually a memory. It's not just her imagining it. He did say that in the last book. Her power ends up like flaring out of control, and she gets overwhelmed, and then she just like lets the magic like sputter out because she can't control it. And Misha Misha has to like, well, she doesn't have to, but she kind of like comforts her and puts a hand on her shoulder, and that's when Oraya realizes that she's crying. So I hate when people are like, I didn't even know I was crying.
How do you not know?
Yeah. So she turns away, and she's just like, no, I'm fine. Let's keep going. But Misha's just like, you know, it's okay to not be okay. Like that whole thing, which is completely true. It's just such a line now that I get that tone with it. But Misha actually explains to Oraya that like her magic feeds on her emotions, and hers are hard now. Like obviously there's a shit ton going on, but one day that'll be her strength. And Oraya kind of like looks at Misha, and she sees all of her scars, and she wonders if there's more than the last book, because like in the last book, Misha was using fire magic, which isn't something that vampires normally have. So every time she'd use it, she'd end up scarred because it was a payment to the goddess. And then at the end of the book, she like lost her ability to do the magic. So Oraya's kind of wondering like if she's just trying to use her magic and unable to, or like what's going on.
Well,
so there's a lot there.
Because didn't she say that like technically, so because Misha's turned human, she worshipped a goddess that granted her or a god that granted her those powers. And when she turned into a vampire, technically she was supposed to start worshipping a different goddess like AatSCK. So she shouldn't have the powers anymore, but it seemed like it was just like the god forgot to take them away. So she thought she had a better relationship with the god, and maybe the god didn't hate her or whatever. But then by her using the power during the Kajari sort of caused her to be noticed by the god, and then he was like, she shouldn't have that, and then pulled it away.
Yeah.
So,
which is sad.
And now she's like reevaluating her sort of spiritual connection to the gods and stuff.
Yeah. So Oraya actually asks her what it's like to be turned, and I kind of wonder if this is because of all the children that she saw, like if that's why this came up, or if she's thinking of Raihn. Like it just seems kind of out of nowhere, because I thought she was going to ask her about her scars or about her magic. Yeah. But Misha says it's like it's the hardest thing that she's ever had gone through, and she would have died if Raihn didn't find her. And we get that she was like actually a priestess before, which is probably like she had magic before because she was a priestess. But she was sick in the desert, and then the next thing she remembers, she was in an inn with a grumpy stranger. So Raihn. So he, I guess, found her while she was turning and like brought her to safety and helped her through it. But she just says like it's hard to talk about, and her turning was against her will, and it was her reckoning. And she says that Raihn's turning was his choice, and I put choice in quotation marks because we kind of got it. And like the stranger asked if he wanted to live, and he said yes, please. Like so like he did, but he was also a dying if it's the same as like if someone goes to give someone first aid, you're supposed to be like, hi, can I help you first? Person's probably gonna say yeah if they're hurt. Like I don't really blame him or feel like it was a choice
and it wasn't it's not like they gave him like the details. They didn't say, hey, do you want to live by turning into a vampire? You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
They just said, do you want to live? Like I think we would all say yeah. You know, like,
yeah, exactly.
Is it consent if you don't have all the information? Is it choice?
No.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Which is funny because the last book was literally all about choice too. So it's just so many parallels. Yeah. Yeah. So she basically says like Rain's turning was his reckoning too, and she says that Oraya's father felt all of this too, but he didn't want to. Even though, like, he wasn't turned. I think she's just saying, like, emotions and, like, weakness and stuff. Like, he felt all of those things as well. But he didn't want to. So he ended up punishing Oraya for, like, any weaknesses she showed, he took as a weakness in himself. So he punished her for that. Right. And that's why she's struggles so hard with showing her emotions now. And Misha says, like, Oraya and Raihn are always trying to be like them, but they're not like them. They're so much better, and they should just be themselves, kind of thing.
But I never took, like, one, Raihn is not trying to be like Neculai in any way, shape, or form. If anything, he is trying decidedly to be the opposite of Neculai. Exactly. And I've never sort of seen Oraya's actions as trying to be like Vincent. Like, maybe a little bit in the first book, she wanted to, like, win the Kajari like he did, and, like, she wants stuff like that sort of a thing. But, like, I never took her actions so far this book as trying to be like him. I saw her trying to please him and, like, follow his instructions because, like, you know, he would always say, like, you're fragile. You need to always be on guard. You need to watch what you're doing. This place is a death trap for you, and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, she was like, yes, okay. So, like, I can see her following his instructions because he taught her that, like, she was vulnerable. But I never saw her actions so far as being like, yes, I'll be just like Vincent.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see them, I don't know. Like, it's kind of, it comes up a bit later this week, but it came up in the first book of, like, Oraya was around humans, and she was like, oy, I'm definitely not like these people. And then she's around vampires, and she's like, oy, I'm not like these people either. It's like, she's also, however old she is, like 20 or something. That's, like, your prime not knowing what the fuck you are time, so...
Yeah, she's half and half, so, like, it's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I think telling someone just to be themselves in their 20s is, like, a silly thing to do anyway, because what the fuck is that? So, yeah. I also was like, nah, they both are acting like themselves, I guess. Like, there are times when Raihn acts differently, sure, but, like, he's also a king. You have to act certain ways if you're a king. Yeah. That's just the way it is. So, yeah. Anyway, Keturah shows up. She was dealing with the ruins of the castle after they killed what's her name?
Evelina?
Evelina, yes, that's what it is. Anyway, yeah, so she was dealing with all that, and I guess all of the kids. And I don't know what happened to all of the kids, but Keturah basically starts teaching Oraya how to, like, conjure and spirit away her wings. So days pass, and they do the same thing every day, basically. And Oraya one day is just like, Misha, we should go back. But Raihn told them that they should wait until he calls for them. But he obviously hasn't yet. And then Oraya knows that, like, Misha doesn't want to be stuck here either, so she agrees. And they go back. And it takes about a week, and they go on horseback, which is good, because I don't think Oraya could fly all that way. So in the castle, they're waiting in Raihn's study, and Raihn, Kairos, Vale, and Septimus come to see them. And Raihn is just covered in blood that isn't his own, of course. And I'm just like, is he the only one covered in blood? But everybody else is just just there. Like, I guess. Interesting. But he's just like, you couldn't do the one thing I asked you to do, because he was like, wait until I call for you. But Oraya can tell that he was worried about her and glad. Like, he looks her over to make sure that she's fine, kind of shit, you know. And Septimus says that she carries her wings better when she's conscious because she has them out now. And I'm just like, that is the creepiest shit ever. Because, like, obviously and she thinks the same thing. She's like, he saw me unconscious with my wings. I don't like it. It's almost like feeling naked in front of him because you're like, ugh.
But also, it's like, obviously douchebag. Like, when you're...
I know, it's just like...
It's like...
Why would you say that?
Look, your head is better when it's, like, upright rather than lolled back unconscious. It's like, yes, no shit.
Exactly. It's just, it was such a weird thing for him to say that I was like, he's such an odd character because I don't necessarily dislike him because, like, obviously he has his own agenda and he's doing his own shit for his people and for his own reasons. Yes. But I'm like, are we making him creepy now so that I start hating him? Is the book trying to turn me against him? Like, I don't really know. But anyway, he also says, like, they were all worried about her and he's glad that she's doing better. And then he's like, I'm gonna go. And everybody else goes to supper. And Raihn just, like, goes straight to supper and doesn't wash up first. And Oraya decides that this means he's sending a message to his inner circle. And, like, it just brings me back to, like, she doesn't know that he thinks that somebody told Septimus that he was heir. So she doesn't know that, but she's getting these clues that, like, something's going on with his inner circle. So, like, we have both sides of it. So I'm like, did something happen while they were not there that, like, there's more obvious treason from his people? Like, it from his good group, his inner circle group. Anyway, it was just a note that she made that I was like, huh, like, what is going to happen now? But anyway, she basically eats some bloody meat and loves it. And we're like, yes, she's half vampire. This is going to be a theme. Raihn then asks Carissa to, like, continue what he was saying earlier. And he's like, here in front of her? And Raihn's like, yeah. Which is so stupid because it's nothing. Like, what he ends up saying is just, like, nothing. And I'm like, why did he care so much? But Carissa says, like, they need an event. And they need to invite the nobles and, like, flaunt Raihn's power. And they've, I guess, talked about it. And it should be Vale's wedding celebration. And Vale immediately is just like, no. But his wife is there, which I didn't realize until she says something. But it's just kind of funny. But she says, why them? Like, why do they have to do it? And Raihn kind of just says, it's because Vale is a noble Rishan. And Vale just says no again. And Raihn says he doesn't get an opinion on this. Vale then says, like, Lilith is foreign and turned, so it isn't the high-ranking, like, event that Raihn says it is. And Raihn just says it's the best they've got. And Vale is like, well, what about your marriage? And Raihn's just like, that's not an option. And Oraya actually thinks, like, she'd rather kill herself than, like, celebrate their marriage as an event in front of people. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And then Vale says, you know what they're like. Because he's like, I'm not putting Lilith in front of them. Like, she's turned. Yeah. And Raihn just says, you are one of them. He says, like, he saw it for a century. But now he has a turned wife, so he's decided to care. And I'm like, that's what I meant if we get back to Vale. And I'm like, that's
valid, though.
Yeah. 100%. Not good. But Lilith kind of cuts in there and says, like, she asks Raihn if the House of Night needs this. And he says yes, they wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And he, like, promises her that. And she says, like, she'll do it if it's what the house needs. And we're like, cool. She's a reasonable person. She seems cool. We go to Raihn's point of view now, and he goes to, like, have a chat with Lilith, and he tells Vale that Keturah wants to talk to him. And that he'll escort Lilith to her room. And obviously Vale is like suspicious and he doesn't want to leave Lilith with Raihn. But Raihn says like she'll be safe and Lilith nods, so he like does walk away. So they're walking and Lilith like stares at him for a full hallway, and then he talks to her in like her language. I don't remember what it was, but like in her native tongue. And we get that it was actually his like native tongue, I guess, too, when he was human. So he's just a bit rusty, but he can speak it. And then she asks him about being turned, not realizing that like that's rude to say. And there's just like there's so many little things in this section. Like they make some small talk and he asks if it was difficult for her to leave home. And she says no, she never belonged there. And she's very blunt. We get that like over and over again. She says whatever she's thinking. And it just gave me like slightly autistic vibes from her. And I'm like, is she like neurodivergent in a world where like it doesn't really exist? Like kind of not that it doesn't exist, but like, you know, in our history, in our past, people didn't understand it either. And you'd just be like, there's something wrong with that person, outcast. So like it kind of gives me those kind of vibes, which like makes me interested in reading a story about her and Vale. Yeah. And like what she's like as a
and like
human beforehand.
And like are like what their love is like. You know what I mean? Like, is it one of those like I can't live without you? Because like for him to turn her, you know what I mean? Like, if he loves her, why would he want to turn her and cause her that sort of pain and potential death? Or, like, did something happen where he had no choice because she was going to die? Like, what happened?
Yeah, and we get a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of it here, but I don't think it's, like, it's not enough of an explanation. But there is a bit more in this. She asks him why he's talking to her, and he explains, like, turned wives are normally pretty subservient, polite, and quiet. And she's like, well, I'm none of those things. And then she asks if he's worried she's going to embarrass him, like, at the wedding. And he's like, oh, yeah, we should probably get, like, he thinks this, but he's like, oh, we should probably get somebody to, like, help her out so she doesn't say or do something that she shouldn't. We're like, it's just kind of funny. But he kind of goes on and he says most people, like, most vampires don't turn people for good reasons. And he says if she doesn't want to be here, she doesn't have to be. And if any of this is against her will. But she cuts him off and says, like, Vale saved her life. So we're assuming that either she was in danger or she was dying and he turned her because of that, is kind of what I assume from this. But obviously I have no idea. But Raihn just thinks to himself, like, that's what they all say. And he's still very, suspicious, maybe. He's still on shore, I guess. So yeah. And he basically is like, well, if anything changes, like, you won't be trapped here. And she just says, like, she appreciates it. And she kind of does say, like, Vale's been nothing but kind and good to her. But, like, it doesn't feel like they're in love yet.
Okay. Based
on this conversation. To me. It feels like Vale loves her, but she's just like, he saved me and I don't know if she's in love with him yet. It doesn't feel like it. She doesn't say, like, this conversation, she's not like, no, I'm perfectly fine. I love him so much. So, she then asks him why he doesn't trust Vale. And he's just like, well, Vale doesn't really trust me either. And we're like, cool. That's it. That's the whole conversation. She's at her room. We go to Oraya's point of view now, and she goes to the human districts because she wants to kill some people / vampires. But it's quiet, and she expected to go on a killing spree, but there's nobody around attacking humans. So she ends up going to the pub, and it's completely packed, and there was a little instance where a man, like, kind of tries to hit on her, and she just, like, gives him a glare, and he walks away. And I'm like, is this ever going to come back? I don't know what's going on. But she hears Vincent's voice saying she doesn't belong here among the mice. And she makes her way to the bar, and then she just, like, freezes. And the barkeep is just like, what do you want? And she just says beer. And then she's like, 1 beer. And then somebody behind her just says 2 beer. And, like, it's Raihn, and he laughs about the fact that, like, she won the Kajari, but she can't even order a beer.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think she would have got the beer by then. But, like, does she have cash? Because Raihn pays for the head. And I'm like, shit, does she even have any money?
That's a good question. I don't know.
So, right? So they sit, and she asks if he's following her. And he said, like, he's there for the same reason she is. But then he also says, like, of course Misha noticed when you left. Like, she's your guard. Yeah. But he says he also comes here often. And then he asks, like, how her patrol went. And she asks, like, what happened out there. And at first she kind of assumes it's him that's killing all of these vampires. Like, just vigilante as himself. And he leans in, and they're, like, kind of close talking. But then she looks at his lips, and she thinks of kissing him. So she, like, leans away from him. But she says, like, he can't be killing them all. But he says he doesn't need to be a vigilante. He made commands, and he's enforcing them. And, like, they're actually not killing humans. And she just thinks, like, Vincent told her nothing could be done. And Raihn made this change in such a short time. And Raihn says, like, because she said that Vincent told her nothing could be done. And Raihn just says, like, they make it seem like reality. And she says she feels like such a fucking idiot. And he says he never questioned it either for a hell of a lot longer than 20 years. And she says, like, they just get to die with no consequences. And he says that now they can use their power to make this kingdom into what they want. Like, it's the first time that he says it, and she actually internalizes it and realizes that, like, he's not just saying this for, like, to make her feel better or anything. Like, he actually believes in making this world a better place.
But, like, I almost feel like this is sort of Vincent's problem with Oraya. So, like, he made her believe that she was a human. So she developed these sympathies for humans because they were like, these are my people. So therefore she saw fault and problems with his rule, and it sort of made this duality in her. Like, if he had told her that she was half vampire, then maybe she wouldn't be so sympathetic to the human plight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe if he had raised her as half vampire and, like, drinking blood, because we've already established that she can drink blood and that she doesn't hate it and that she likes it, then, like, maybe she would have been a little bit more willing to face the atrocities of Vincent's court. And he wouldn't have had to, like, lie to her so much.
Yeah. I guess his bigger fear was that somebody would find out that she was... Okay. But it's like, I don't know, it still seems like there's something in between the two extremes that he could have done.
Yeah.
But yeah. So he starts to say they need to talk about, and then, like, his forehead smashes into hers, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it's the same guy that hit on her earlier, and I was like, is something happening with him? Like, is he gonna come back in some way? But nope. He just says, sorry, it was an accident because the place is packed. And then he recognizes who Raihn is and that he's the king. And, like, he drops to his knees. And, like, the whole bar starts to realize, because, like, obviously the people close and it's, like, moving along. And Raihn, like, looks devastated for a minute because he knows, like, obviously he can't come back here anymore. Like, nobody's gonna forget that. But he just says, like, no worries, all good. And then he's like, we need to go. So Oraya, like, feels bad for him. Like, he's losing this place that, like, kept him close to his humanity, which was important to him. And they end up walking to the boarding house. So they go upstairs, and he flops on the bed, and he's, like, kind of starts teasing her and asks if she wants to join. But it gets her thinking about the last time they had sex. And I'm like, it's happening. It's happening. And she like she thinks of like him coming at the same time that she did. And like we get like vivid flashback. But she asks him if he ever brings other women up here. And he kind of teases her a bit because like obviously she asked for a reason. But he says no because he's married. And she says no one would blame him if he did, like, get some easy pleasure. But he says there's no such thing as easy pleasure. And he says he likes a little fight. And he says that she's ruined him for all others. But it's his fault because he knew she would. And she's just like, okay, well, how about hard pleasure then? And he says it's only good if it hurts. So she like walks over to him and like straddles one of his legs.
Only one.
And yeah, so that she can get some friction. And he just like sits up because he was lying back. And she like, they entwine other hands because like he grabs her hand at one point. So now they're holding both hands. And she brings his hand up and she like licks his thumb. And then she just bites it. And she's like, it's just instinct. It's not really what she had planned to do, but she just like bites his thumb. That'd be something. Ugh, ow. And at first she's like, shit, this is delicious. But then she pulls back and she's like, what am I doing? And she immediately thinks that she's like never drinking again. And I'm like, you had half of a shitty beer.
Yeah.
Like you can't blame alcohol for this. But she's immediately embarrassed over like biting him. And he's just like, it's okay to be curious. Like she is half vampire and they're very rare. So it like, they don't really know what she needs or what she wants or like any of that. Or like what's going to happen to her. Cause like, is she going to settle into a vampire and stop aging? Like, anyway. But she tells him like she tasted blood at Evelena's party and liked it, but it was different. Like his blood was different. And it makes her think of him saying that in the first book. I think he like said that her blood tasted so much better or something. Of course. But he just says like it can be her body reacting. It doesn't have to mean anything. And he kind of says like they can try better ways to experiment and like implies that she can bite his throat.
Or penis?
I know, I was just gonna, that would also be painful. And she just tells him like it's dumb to offer his throat, and he teases her a bit about it, and like it does snap her out of what she was feeling. And then she asks him what he was about to say at the bar, and he's like, ugh, I don't want to talk about work here. But they have to.
Do they, though? Can't they just keep
I know,
going
I'm like,
what?
I know. I really thought that she was going to, like, start drinking his blood and then, like, have an orgasm on his thigh.
Do we think that, like... And again, it's been ages since I read this book, so I don't actually remember anything except for, like, the finals, like, the really, like, sort of the end, I remember. But other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah.
But, like, do we think that their blood tastes different to each other? Like, are they, like, mates? Is that, like, I don't even remember if that's a thing in this book, but, like, do we think that that's it? Like, are they blood mates?
I think so. Like, I think, or, like, there is some physical reaction to when you meet somebody, like, they're having some sort of reaction to each other that is on a more intimate level because, I don't know, they're physically compatible. Like, I don't know how to...
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something there. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I've read, so we'll have to do the rest. Hopefully I'll get it done today. I'll let you know.
Fine.
Sweet. She's moving.
She is.
Okay. Will I just get into her?
I guess.
Cool. So he brings up the wedding, And he tells Oraya that the Bloodborne aren't listening to him and they aren't like standing down, so they're killing the Hiaj people, even though he's kind of telling them not to. And it's like, this doesn't seem like a great alliance. And they're also no closer to the God Blood, and they don't really understand anything about the pendant. So, you know, a lot going on. The Rishan nobles aren't listening either, and obviously they hate Raihn, and they won't respect him as a king. And Simon Vazirus, who is the noble leader, I guess, the more powerful one, the brother of the guy that he killed in that first meeting. He apparently has a bigger army than Raihn does. So that's not great.
No.
So Raihn kind of says like they need a better option, and she thinks it's her and the God Blood is the better option. And I just don't really understand what that meant. But onward and upward. I don't really know. But he basically says that he's decided to invite the House of Shadow to the party because they hate the Bloodborne, and they don't want the Bloodborne to take over, so he thinks that maybe they'll align with him and try to get them out, basically. But they do have mind magic, which is like a scary thing to have somebody use.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And he also thinks, like, if he allies with them, then the Rishan will follow him because he'll have more power. Okay, these are leaps and jumps, but sure.
Yeah. There's so much fucking politics.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's too much for my brain.
Yeah. Too much going on.
Exactly. So she asks him what Karis thinks of all of this, and he says he hasn't told anyone yet. And that the Rishan nobles knew too much, so there's a traitor among them. And she's just like, oh, do you know who it is? And then she thinks it through, and she guesses Vale, because, like, obviously he trusts Kairos and Keturah because he left Misha with them. And, like, obviously it's not Misha, although that would be the twist of a fucking century.
Yeah.
I would cry, though. I'd be so upset. So he thinks it's Vale. She asks what it'll take to get the Shadowborn to ally with him, and he says they might just want to put the Bloodborns in their place, and it might be easy. I don't think so. And he says if he does that, maybe he can earn the respect of, like, the Hiaj with her help. And I'm like, this is all... I think she calls him an optimist or something. She's like, this is not going to work.
He just wants everybody to work together and be kind.
Yeah. Unlikely. He does tell her, though, that, like, once he has this Shadowborn on his side, and Septimus won't be as much of a big deal, and his side project of using her to find stuff will be, like, won't matter anymore. So he says he won't need her anymore, and she can be free. And it kind of hits her that, like, she has never in her life been free. He tells her that, like, the Rishan, the Hiaj, and the humans are all his people, so he will take care of them. And he's like, I think he kind of says, like, he's kind of proven that with how he's acted and stuff. But he also says she deserves to be free, and they took too much from her. And she asks him what if she, like, just turns around and, like, wages war on him for his title, because she knows that that's what, like, her people would expect her to do as an heir. And she kind of just says she doesn't know what to do, because, like, the concept of freedom, I guess, to somebody who's never had it is kind of overwhelming. But he tells her to think on it and says she should have her freedom. She should have had her freedom her whole life, but it's better late than never. And, like, I respect this, that he's actually, like, letting her go, even though he's clearly in love with her. I do. Although, obviously, something's going to come up. I don't know what, because I haven't read further, but something has to come up, or this is a terrible romance. So some weeks pass, everyone's getting ready for the wedding, and she's obviously thinking about what freedom means and all of that stuff, what she'd even do. So the night before the wedding, she's like wandering around the castle, and she actually runs into Septimus.
What a shock.
Yeah, it's definitely not on purpose. So she sits with him and like has a cigarello with him, and she lights it with her magic, which like impresses him, and he's like, well, it's because like the big magic is easier than the small magic, which is just like, is she getting better at her magic?
Has she been training?
It's just weeks past. We don't know what happened. But like, I guess maybe. But anyway, she notices that 2 of his fingers now are like constantly trembling, and she wonders if it's a sign of the curse. So what we know of the curse from the last book, and they refresh us in this one, it's like they get red eyes, they get black veins under paper white skin, and at the end it's just insanity and bloodlust. So she's like, maybe this is a sign that his curse is progressing on him, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
He tells her it's nice to see her out, and that Raihn recognizes what he has in her, even though Vincent didn't, which is just kind of like, he sees a lot, we'll say.
Yeah.
She asks him why he's here, and he's like, I already told you, I want the god blood. And he asks her what it felt like growing up in this world as a human, and she doesn't really answer. So he says, like, he just basically guesses, but he knows. He says her father always made her feel weak, and he actually tells her like he respects people who have fear, and then he says he wants to tell her a story. So he says 2,000 years ago, they had a nice kingdom, and then they pissed off the goddess. But that's not the story he's telling tonight. He's going to tell her a story about a prince of the House of Blood. I guess they're the House of Blood, are they?
They are.
Yeah, okay. So he says, not long ago, the king fell in love with an optimist and got married, and then they got pregnant. And then, as is custom in the Bloodborne house, they went to see a seer. And they got a prophecy that their son would either save or end the House of Blood. And Araya's just sitting here like, ugh, he's telling a story about himself. But he says the child grew up with love from his parents, and he became loyal and strong, and he became the best of them. And then she's like, oh, he's probably not talking about himself now. And then this child went off, or prince, I guess. Person? Yes, prince. It had to be a prince. Anyway. He's an adult now, but he set off to find AatSCK, and he found the land of the gods, and he did trials to earn her affection, and like did everything he could, and she just laughed at him and killed him, and left one of his generals alive, and sent the general back with the prince's head, and that was Septimus's brother. Originally, he had 6 brothers and a sister, and his sister is still alive, so at this point, he's the last resort for, like, this prophecy. He's the only son left in this family.
Aww.
So he says he's willing to do whatever needs to be done. And he knows Oraya is the same, and his bet is on her. And all he asks for is loyalty. And she knows that he's basically offering her the crown in this moment. But she knows that obviously there will be strings attached. And she knows that Vincent would have taken this deal in like a second. And it makes her think of the deal that Raihn took and how like he really didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But she thinks like she has a choice now. Like she can say no. So she basically just tells him she can't take a deal with a desperate man. And he's right that she's tired of being caged. But she recognizes bars when she sees them. Which I think is fair. Like, she would have been caged in with this deal, too. So the next day is the wedding. Ceremony? Do they... I don't know if they actually
and
do
they're already
wedding.
married, so...
Yeah.
It must be just like a reception?
Yeah. It's the party. So, a bunch of women come in to get her ready. And she puts on, like, a beautiful dress. And it hides her air mark. And then, like, after all the women leave, she takes off, I think they call it a mantle, but it's like a top. It seems like a cape of the dress or something.
Okay.
Like, it's an extra piece of the dress. She takes it off and, like, make sure that her air mark is showing. And she looks in the mirror and she sees like the resemblances between her and Vincent and wonders how she never saw them before now. And she also sees like the 2 marks on her neck from being bitten. And she thinks one was a choice with Raihn and one wasn't with that first guy that we heard about in the first book. So she basically has everything like
on display.
Yeah, more so her vulnerability, but also her tits.
What a combo.
Right? We go to Raihn's point of view now, and the house looks like it used to when Nikolai, or however say his name, was the king. And they're serving like human blood, of course, because like you can't change things, but the humans are being like compensated and there are guards and stuff. So he thinks that the blood tastes good, but not as good as Oraya's. And it makes him look at his thumb scar and it makes him think of her. Raihn is just looking around and he sees like Vale and Lilith, and apparently Carissa told Lilith to keep quiet if at all possible, but like after people come up and congratulate them, like she whispers to Vale, and they seem really cute together. They like are giggling together, and then Misha shows up, and obviously she looks beautiful, and she tells him that he looks kingly and clean, and she's like, I can't lie to you.
What a compliment. You look clean.
You look like a king, I guess. Which is just funny. Obviously, he's not dressed as he normally would be. Or how he would even want to be. But Misha looks over at Vale and Lilith too, and she says that she thinks that Vale loves Lilith and that this is real. And Raihn obviously isn't sure yet, but it's just like, I want more of their story. So, then Raihn basically says, like, he doesn't need Misha to, like, watch over him and to go eat something. And she goes to, like, I guess, kiss him on the cheek or something, but he sees that Simon has shown up, so he steps away. And she's a bit hurt, but he's like, hey, Simon's here. Like, I can't look like I care about anybody, basically.
Who's Simon again?
The brother of the guy that he killed.
Right.
The, like, highest noble Rishan.
Right.
And his tormentor for 70 years.
Right.
Good times. So he starts walking over to Raihn, and Raihn just tells Misha to go because he doesn't want, like, her to be in Simon's sights. Simon basically just says, like, Your Highness, and Raihn feels fear when he's there because of everything he's been through with him, but he thinks of Oraya's strength when she's around predators all the time, and he pretends like he has that kind of strength too. So he says he's glad that Simon could make the journey at last, and Simon bows low and he apologizes for being stuck in his ways and says he's glad to be here. And you're like, this is a turn. What's going on? Raihn says that like Simon is very fortunate that he's in a good mood, and Simon just like smiles about it and is fine with it, but his wife looks at him with disgust, and you're like, they clearly remember.
Yeah.
And they're not cool.
Of course.
Yeah. Carissa pulls him away then, Raihn away, and says like the House of Shadow Prince arrived, and the prince goes over and like Raihn and the prince talk, and the prince bows low to him, and the prince is interesting. He's just like says he's surprised by the party and he expected it to be dreary, and Raihn says like they put down the pests, and the prince says that they, I guess his house, haven't needed the Bloodborne's help to do that themselves. And you're just like, okay, this is like some fun conversation, but also Barbie. And I'm like, I don't know where this relationship alliance is going, because he seems like a fun, cool guy at first. And you're like, is he going to be like one of the main characters in one of the next duets or something?
Oh, if only you knew.
I know. I do not.
You still do not?
No.
Oh.
No. I haven't read much.
Oh, okay.
I got a little something, but I think that's this week.
Oh, just wait.
So Oraya shows up then, and the world stops for Raihn because we're in his point of view, and he's like entranced by her and just staring at her.
It's like, shit, she pretty.
Basically. So we go over to Araya's point of view now, and she is going into this party, and she is unafraid, and she has her throat exposed, and she sees Raihn, and his look to her is way too obvious. She's just like, oh my god, you're letting everybody see your heart right now.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
Like, oh my god, stop loving me so much.
Right? So she turns away from him, and Misha comes over and compliments her. And Misha asks if Karis, like, chose her dress, and she said yes, but the top piece was uncomfortable, so she decided not to wear it. And Misha just says, like, she has balls for doing that, which I just love. I love the relationship. The prince keeps looking over at Misha, and Oraya mentions it, and then Misha looks at him, and her face kind of goes, like, ashen, and Oraya just asks what's wrong, but Misha just, like, makes an excuse and runs away. So that's all I got. But I'm like, did he turn her? Is he in love with her? Like, what the fuck is going on? I don't want to know, so don't say anything.
Yeah, so you're talking about this is the
Shadow Prince.
Shadow Prince, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many there's so many princes and shit in this.
True. Yeah.
Anyway, yes. It's sort of
there's something.
There's something, yes. There's something to it.
Yeah. So she's distracted by Misha leaving, but then Simon grabs her arm and asks her to dance, and she just says she doesn't dance with people who touch her without her permission, and she thinks like she doesn't need to kiss this guy's ass, like she's here
against her will.
Exactly. So like she's not here to make friends with him. And he says he wanted to introduce himself, but she says she knows who he is, and he smiles and says he's known Raihn for a while. And she goes to walk away, and he grabs her again, and she tells him not to touch her. And he says he can see why Raihn kept her alive. And she just says, like, she's the exotic prize, and he agrees, and he looks at Raihn in, like, a completely possessive way. And he says, like, not very long ago, Raihn was the exotic thing. And, like, that pisses her off, too. And she says he told her all she needed to know, like, about Raihn told her all she needed to know about Simon. And, like, takes his hand off of her arm, basically, and is like, don't touch me anymore. Raihn comes over then and says, she's mine and I don't share, which I'm fine with in this situation.
I'm also fine with, but at the same time, I feel like, do you really need to antagonize the situation even more than you already have? Like, I feel like he knows that this guy doesn't like him. So I feel like going around and being like, she's mine, is a little bit like, you're like, dude, you just, like, insinuated that you cared for her. So, like, I feel like it was a mistake to do that.
Yeah. Now he knows an easier way to get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then he's also, like, hurt. And he basically tells her, like, if she wants to hurt him, to do it in other ways. And, well, I guess I'm not 100% sure if he's hurt or if he's worried for her because he knows Simon. Because he, like, she thinks to herself it's the first time he's ever, like, used command in his voice talking to her when he tells her, like, not to use Simon. So I don't know if he's scared for her or if he's hurt that she would talk to Simon, you know? Not sure. So, he basically stops and she says he looks sorry for, like, saying that. And then he asks her to dance and she's just like, Kyrus, like, forced her to take a few lessons, but they didn't go well, and she doesn't know how to dance, which is just such a common trope.
Mm-hmm.
Which I get, I guess, because, like, they're, like, why would a human need to learn to dance? And then she was never allowed to go to balls, so, you know. But he says that he needs an excuse as to why they're, like, standing in the middle of the floor fighting. But she says, isn't this what she was supposed to be doing, hating him? And then he says, well, if that's the case, keep that look on your face. And then they start, like, they get ready to dance together. Mm. That's the end. That is it.
Wow.
Which is sad.
That's a very abrupt ending.
It is. I wonder... No, I was wondering if it was because it changed point of view, but it doesn't. It's just, that's the end of the chapter. Which is unfortunate. There's so much more to know. So, yeah.
I just feel like there's so much more to come.
Yeah, it felt like a bit less happened this week than the first week. Like, the first week, so much happened, and I was like, what the fuck even is this book?
Yeah.
And this week, I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
And I did start next week, and in the first chapter, so much happens. So, like, I know it's gonna ramp up, and, like, that is what's happening.
Yeah.
But I stopped immediately after a part where I don't want to read anymore, so.
Yeah. I just remember, like, the big things that happened in this book. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm like, shit, there's so many big things left to happen. Like, how are we going to fit it all in? But it's fine.
Well, they're jam-packed in the beginning of next week, for sure. I haven't gotten past that part yet, so I'm sure it's just going to be bam, bam, bam. But I guess we'll get there when we get there.
Yep.
So, yeah. That wraps us up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread, and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week, we will be reading chapters 38 to 58 of Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review. Follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.